Hi, Skylar with you here from We Eat Together, and we're going to give you 5 different ways to compose better food photographs. Of course, lighting's at the top when it comes to a photograph, but composition's not far down the list. When people are looking at a food photograph, or any photograph for that matter, the technique should be invisible. As soon as they notice the technique and start looking at that instead of the food, you've lost them. And what's really bad, what's even worse, is when the viewer gets distracted because the technique was done poorly. Alright, the first compositional technique that we're going to discuss has to do with camera placement. It's called the 45-degree shot. The camera is going to be raised slightly above the table. If we make an imaginary arc from the front to the back of the table, we'll lift the camera up and then tilt it slightly forward towards the food. This is great because not only do we get a nice look at the food, but we'll be able to include within the frame all these great foreground and background props that'll help us tell more of a story. The second thing about composition is a rule I see broken a lot when people are first starting out, and that's the style to the camera. You see, if your camera is not locked down on a tripod and you're not styling to the camera, then every time you set your camera down to move that carrot or to push that glass back, then you go to frame it up again, your whole composition has changed. Everything is different each time you pick up your camera. And most likely your focus has changed too. So one of the biggest pieces of advice I give is to lock it down on a tripod and style to the camera. Alright, that looks just about right for this picture. I think everything's ready to go. Okay, next up for composition, it's one that's used a lot, and for good reason. It's the 90-degree angle, and this is it. The camera is placed directly above the table. I say good reason because props and food can be very graphic. With all those shapes and lines, nothing shows that better than from a top-looking down type of composition. Now the last bit of compositional wisdom we have for you is a 2-for-1. First, use the PowerPoints within the frame. PowerPoints are points where the lines of this grid intersect one another. I'm sure you've all heard of the rule of thirds. Well, it works for food photography as well. You could choose to place all the food and props on a third of the frame, leaving lots of negative space for something like text. Or you could scatter the dishes around and place your hero dish on one of these PowerPoints. Second, you don't have to show everything. It looks unnatural and staged. Try to style it as if you just happened to walk by and see a really cool and stylish table fully set for a meal. And you also just happen to have your camera to take the awesome photo. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video on better composition. This is Skylar from We Eat Together, signing off.